Seiji vs. Gyomii, Seiji's POV. Imagine seeing a disaster coming from a mile away. Imagine having all the time in the world to think of a way to fight against said disaster. Imagine preparing a plan and acting perfectly on it. Imagine the disaster holding back. But then, imagine being sent flying away after all that. Imagine all your efforts being crushed by overwhelming strength. Imagine seeing a disaster from a mile away and still being absolutely crushed by it. It did not matter if you saw it coming from a mile away. It did not matter if you could predict it perfectly or if the world was in slow motion. You still got blasted away to kingdom come. Might makes it right and raw strength bends logic. If you were still imagining all these in your head, then lucky you. Because truthfully, I was not as lucky. Boom. Holy shit. I thought in my mind while being sent flying away like a ragdoll by a simple palm strike from Gyomii. It was one thing to know strength, and another to feel strength. I knew how strong Gyomii was, I trained with him and my eyes told me exactly how strong he was. But to feel that strength being used against me was like being sent to a new dimension. I knew he could push boulders weighing 10 tons. But that was starkly different when you were pushed with the force of 10 tons. The difference between knowledge and experience had never been clearer to me. But would you lose? A voice asked me in my head. Nah, this meme is seriously overused at this point. I replied while doing flips in the air to disperse the sheer kinetic energy flowing through my body. Then I landed with a soft thud. The shockwave caused by his strike was noticed by everyone as they all moved back and gave us room for the upcoming battle. I understand, Seiji. You are at that age where you want to test your strength and see how you stand against someone you consider the strongest. But you have to understand that this is meaningless. We are all allies and we are equally strong in our own ways. Gyomii said while joining his hands in prayer. He also spoke like a monk. I smiled. Although the way he spoke was humble, there was an underlying pride and confidence you would expect from the strongest human alive. You can't lie to me, I'm deaf and I see the truth. He was still treating me like a kid who merely wanted to test myself against him. The thought that I could have surpassed him never really crossed his mind. This was exactly why I wanted to do this. My eyes can see the truth of the world and the truth is, I was already stronger than Gyomii. So this was not fighting to me. There was no such thing as fighting to me in the first place. This was not a fight, this was not a battle or a duel. This was just me, speaking the truth to everyone and telling them that I was the strongest. This was not a conversation, this was not a debate. It was an announcement. Esoteric art, breathing styles. Flame wind breathing, inferno. My whole body was encased in raging flames and green blades of wind wrapped around me. Fire and wind went together like bread and butter. The intensity of flame breathing and the violent nature of wind breathing. A mix between these two resulted in a catastrophic style of fighting. It was a breathing style with the greatest destructive ability. Gyomii was the mountain I wanted to crush. My body exploded out, ferocious and violent. The air seemed to vibrate due to sheer potency as I drilled through the atmosphere. There was no need to aim, no use for accuracy. I was going to shred everything that was in front of me. I was going to raze the mountain to the ground. Gyomii planted his feet firmly on the ground when he heard the unstoppable force behind me. Then he took a deep breath that stripped the air around him. Stone breathing, third form, Gyomii, a mountain in my eyes suddenly became something else. He no longer gave off the feeling of a mountain that was giant with no purpose. I saw the image of a great fortress behind him that stood with the sole purpose of stopping any attack. He had become an immovable object. Stone skin. He tugged at the chain of his weapon with great force. The flail and the axe at both ends of his chain moved at the speed of sound and rotated around him. They were so fast that the human eye wouldn't be able to see them. Such heavy objects moving at such speed simply did not make sense. But I pushed forward with more intensity, the flames around me wrapped into bright red flames as I crashed into the living fortress. And thus, an unstoppable force met an immovable object. Have you ever wondered what would happen in such a case? Well, boom. There was a loud explosion that shook the entire vicinity, then everything except the two suffered the consequences of the clash. The pavement of the Demon Slayer headquarters ripped apart like a new asphalt road. Cobweb of cracks scarred the earth, imprinting a literal image of power that the earth couldn't hold. The air exploded and the wind fled from the clash in the form of a hurricane. Jayomi's white eyes widened and I could see surprise in those blind orbs. It was not a single clash. My arm blurred and with incredible speed, I slashed at Jayomi from different directions. The stone Hashira was not as fast but with the help of his axe and flay, he was able to keep up with me. A cloud of dust and pebbles rose and our weapons created bright sparks with every connection they made. We remained at a standstill for a few seconds until Jayomi took a step back. The fortress faltered. But that single step gave a new footing to him. Bulbous veins popped out from his body and raw strength flooded out from each of his swings. The attacks forced me to stop my attack because I saw that the force behind them was enough to bend my sword. Jayomi heaved a huge sigh while his clothes fell apart. They were ripped by the wind blades produced by my sword. His clothes came off to reveal his godly physique. His huge muscles looked like they were carved from stone. But on his body, you could see cuts. They were not enough to penetrate his skin but enough to leave a mark, a scratch. You managed to use 2 breathings at once, Jayomi said with a heavy voice. The other Hashiras let out a collective gasp and they turned towards me. They could not see the effects of breathing styles and they did not have eyes to see the pattern of my breathing. So all this time, they were not aware of my ability. But Jayomi could hear my breath and he saw the world with a different perspective that allowed him to observe things on a deeper level. Indeed. It's nice no? I asked with a smile. It is truly an impressive feat and what you used just now was? He questioned. Flame breathing and wind breathing, I answered. He nodded. You have become a master of breathing style itself, he declared, but that won't be enough to move me. I had stood against fiercer force, I had burdened worse. Then he took the initiative this time. He took a powerful step forward, sending shockwaves which I assumed helped him feel the world around him. Like a bat using echolocation. He was slow, the slowest amongst us Hashiras. But one didn't need to be fast when they had such weight behind every move. They would crush anything regardless. Inevitable need not hurry. Stone breathing, second form, he declared loudly and boldly. He tossed his spiky ball into the air before stepping on the chain to bring it down with the speed of a meteorite. Upper smash. He might be slow but his weapon was anything but. They moved like a whip, easily breaking the sound barrier. I moved away just enough that the flail missed me and left a crater on the ground. He did the same with his axe, throwing it in the air before stepping on the chain to bring it down with incredible speed. The ground broke under his attack. But I remained unharmed. Even if I was weaker than him, I wouldn't lose. I could predict his attacks, he would never be able to catch me. I shot forward at the speed of sound, I hoped the sonic boom messed with his hearing even if just for a bit. Thunder breathing, third form. I unleashed multiple slashes at him from all directions. Lighting crackled around me with each swing I took. Thunder swarm. The stone Hashira met me head-on. He was more than capable of matching one breathing style at a time. My incredible speed was matched by his overwhelming strength as we clashed in different places. My eyes observed his joints and muscles to predict his movement, giving me enough time to deal with his attacks even if each of them weighed a ton. But with each clash, I noticed that he was slowly overpowering me, like a boulder rolling off a mountain, he was gaining strength and momentum. It was repetitive action, the main concept behind Jayomi's strength. By applying persistent force against an object, you could move mountains. I learned it so I knew it. I would lose my advantage in a drawn-out battle. So with a great leap, I created distance. Thunderstone breathing, Arc of Ruin. I declared, and the muscles on my arm enlarged visibly, ready to produce inhumane strength even at the cost of great fatigue. The sheer strength of stone breathing mixed with the explosive power of thunder breathing. I pulled back my blade as far as I could, and when I landed on the ground, I swung my sword. The force behind my swing was so strong that it sliced anything that was in front of me. My long blade sliced through the air, and not a single noise sounded. But the strength behind my blade was such that Gyomii could feel the attack coming. He brought up his chain to block the attack, but it might as well be paper in front of my blade. His iron chain was cut into two, and he was forced to bend down his gigantic frame to escape the wind blade that followed. Whoosh. The ground cracked, ripped apart by the sheer potency of my wind blade that went on until it left a giant slash mark on one of the houses. That was supposed to end this fight, but I suppose Gyomii was too experienced to be taken out just like that. But still, forcing him to dodge was an accomplishment. He flashed me a smile with beads of sweat falling from the side of his face. He was not shocked, humiliated, or angry when he was forced to dodge. He simply had a proud smile on his face. The kind of smile my big brother would have when I beat him in a board game. Stone breathing, forth from. He said, and the suction of air was strong enough to move my hair. Volcanic rock, rapid conquest, I said this before, but Gyomii was a mountain. And that mountain just exploded like a volcanic eruption. My eyes widened as every fiber of his body pulled themselves together until I thought they would snap due to the strain. Humans could not use 100% of their muscle mass. Their body could not take it. Their bones would break and their tendons would snap. Even I could only use 100% of my muscle power briefly with the help of thunder breathing. But right now, Gyomii was doing just that. Yet his bones were not crushed, and his tendons did not snap. He was fine. His body was heating up to a ridiculous degree and his sweat evaporated, producing steam. He was like a real volcano that was erupting. The sheer power and energy around him seemed to shake the air itself. I was not expecting that at all. Even my eyes could not have predicted this outcome because it was just impossible. He grabbed the broken chains with both hands. I could barely predict his movement because all of his muscles were working and tensing up. I knew I had to end this in an instant. Esoteric art, breathing styles. I prepared my body to surpass its limit as well. Storm breathing, lighting wave, the speed of thunder breathing. The accuracy of water breathing. The force of wind breathing. All of these boiled down into a single move. My body left an afterimage and before anything could react, I blitzed past Gyomii and stopped at the other side. The sound created by the attack was so high-pitched that no one except Gyomii could hear it. The frequency of the vibration from the sound caused every glass nearly to shatter in an instant. Gyomii halted in his place and after a single second, the prayer beads he wore on his neck broke and fell off. The prayer beads hit the ground one by one, but other than that, he was unharmed. I made sure he was so. I remained in my place. Not to look cool even though it was, but because I literally could not move after using 3 breathings at once. My body still could not handle it. On the other hand, Gyomii stood up straight and he declared. I lost. If I wanted to, I could have cut off his head at that moment. And thus, at the age of 16, I officially became the strongest Hashira. To be honest, it took more effort than I thought it would. Alternative title, Blind Man vs. Deaf Man, The Battle of Disability. Gyomii, this stone Hashira humbly demands stones for his fight, Amitabha. And even if we did, he could create a new form on the fly because he is just that OP. And regarding his power level. He is already at the same combat power as Upper Moon 3, but he would lose because of the demon OP regeneration. But with combat powers alone, he can even overwhelm them except Muzan and Kokushibo. It's finally the perfect time to join my Patreon. Join today. Emmanuel_Capricorn. It's hard to come up with chapter title sometimes. I guess I will name this, Stuff Happens, Seiji's POV. After my duel against Gyomii ended, my body finally could not keep the image of strength anymore and my legs turned into jelly. I staggered back, but before I could fall, I felt two soft mounds press on my back. The familiar scent of flowers whiffed against my nose and I felt a rush of air near my ear. She was whispering something in my ear, but I couldn't hear it. I immediately focused on my body and using her as a support, I was able to stand upright again and catch myself. After a few seconds of channeling steroid breathing through my body, I was able to stand by myself again. Thank you, I said. Kane flashed me a small and uncertain smile. Then she left my side and went to Gyomii to check on his condition. Meanwhile, Sanemi, Ju and Tengen approached me. I must admit that today, you were flashier than me, Tengen said first since he reached me first. That was amazing, Seiji. Oi! Deaf man. Teach me how to use your mixed breathing. I smiled at them. I honestly missed these dudes. They were my friends after all. I think you need to learn another breathing style first before you can learn mixed breathing, Ju replied to Sanemi's demand for me. Oh right, that's true. Ju saw an opportunity and he quickly said, if you want, I can teach you. Never mind then. I will just have to master wind breathing to the point that I surpass whatever weird things you're doing. Sanmei said to me with fire in his eyes. Meanwhile, Ju was left dejected. His mission of getting closer to Sanemi and making him a friend had been unsuccessful once more. I chuckled. Your last move was so fast that even I could not follow it. Tell me, how do you achieve such speed? Tengen said and spawned a small notebook out of nowhere to write things down. What is that? I asked. Oh, it's where I note down how I could become flashier/faster, he said with a shrug. So, any advice? He was a really down-to-earth dude. There was no jealousy or bitterness when he saw that I was faster than him. Instead, he was simply eager to learn, even to someone like me who was much younger and inexperienced than him. Women weaken legs, I said, quoting Mickey from Rocky just to mess with him. The absolute horror on his face after I said that caused me to laugh out loud. The conflicting expression that followed made my laugh continue. It was a conflict of interest. What was more important, his women or being flashy? I'm messing with you. If you want, I can teach it to you when we have a joint mission, I said, and he gave me a thumbs up with a wide smile. I did not need to teach him a whole other breathing style. One form of storm breathing he could use as a last resort should be fine. Hey! How come he is able to learn? Because Tengen is only asking for a way to increase his speed, not to learn mixed breathing. It's incredible you missed that. Ju said with a straight face. You bastard. Why do you keep insulting me? I am not. I just think that it requires someone unique to miss such an obvious difference. That didn't sound better. I watched them banter with amusement. Kane confirmed that Gyomii had not suffered any injury other than fatigue caused by unlocking 100% of his muscle power. All of us hang around the headquarters, sometimes having important and serious discussions, sharing our ideas on the topic of the demon war, etc. But we also had childish banter and gossip with each other. The servant served us tea and we enjoyed each other company on the veranda for a short while before the Hashira meeting came to an end. Everyone left one by one to their territory or to complete their mission. Me and Kane on the other hand planned on returning to the flower mansion. After using storm breathing, 3 breathing styles at once, I would need a good rest first before I began hunting demons. But right before we left, Lady Amain stopped me and told me that her husband wished to have a private talk with me. Kane said she would wait, so I went inside the main house of the headquarters to meet Abuyashiki. I heard you wanted to talk to me, I said. I was kneeling down in the center of the room while he slept on a futon near the corner. Yes, there is something I must discuss with you regarding your fiancé, Abuyashiki said slowly, selecting each of his words carefully because he couldn't spare much energy to say nonsense. I am certain I crossed a line I shouldn't, but I have recruited her to the Demon Slayer Corp. I'll admit I felt a surge of anger when he said that. He was directly interfering with my private affairs. He had contacted my Mitsuri without saying anything to me. And he ignored my decision to keep her away from the war. I knew he was smart enough to know I did not want to put her in danger or let her experience the things every demon slayer experienced. Please do not misunderstand. Even before you were engaged to her, I had my eyes on her since she was a talented candidate to become a demon slayer like I did on you. Her special body could easily get her to the level of Hashira. Once again, I was surprised at the guy's ability to gather information. I remembered there were theories that the Ubuyashiki family had the ability of foresight. Was that true? At first, I was planning to respect your decision, but 2 days ago, Mitsuri ran away from home to find you. She wished to become a demon slayer like you and fight alongside you. Ubuyashiki said. That calmed down any anger bubbling in my heart. That was something I could imagine her doing. It was adorable. So I helped her, he admitted. I sighed. I guess it was inevitable that she would become a demon slayer. I wanted to protect her, not just her safety, but I also wanted to protect her from the darkness of war and cruelty. But if it was her decision to become a demon slayer, I couldn't stop her. Instead, I guess I should work on training her and making sure she was many times stronger than her canon counterpart to assure her safety. I just want to say that sheltering her like that is not the best way of protecting her. With her talent, she would be safer if she learned to fight for herself, instead of keeping her a helpless damsel, he said. It was true to a certain degree, but I'm sure there was another agenda. He would gain another powerful pawn in his war against Muzan Kibutsuji. He was not the good guy he pretended to be. I knew how ruthless he was and his obsession with defeating Muzan. He never hesitated to sacrifice his wife and children to bring the Demon King down. It's fine. If it is indeed her decision, there is nothing I can do to stop her, I said. I am happy you understand Seiji, he said with a weak smile. And regarding her sensei? Send her to Rengoku, I said immediately. Rengoku? Yes, he is my friend and I trust him to train and take care of her. Let him teach her, and after she completes the final selection, I will take her as a Tsuguko. I said. I really liked Rengoku and Mitsuri's sibling relationship in the anime. They were similar in many regards: strange hair, an unhealthy obsession with food, a positive attitude, etc. Also, Rengoku's Sparta training should be good for her special body, and learning palm breathing would help her develop love breathing as she did in canon. If that is what you think is good, then I will do it, he said. If that is all, then I will leave, I said, and bid farewell to the dying man. Goodbye, Seiji. Thank you for your service. I left the house and met up with Kane outside. Then we head towards the flower mansion slowly so as to not tire my body more. Maybe it was just me, but Kane was acting weird. There was also an awkward atmosphere between us during the whole journey. I hope I'm just imagining things and Kane was not really looking at me like prey she wouldn't let go. Third POV, it can't be. How can this be? Kane Kocho pressed her heart, which was beating wildly in the confines of her chest. It felt like it wanted to break out of its prison and run away from her. Because it was hurting. Why was it hurting? Congratulations on your engagement. Ah, was it really because of that? Was her heart really hurting because he was engaged with another girl? She told herself she didn't have feelings for him. Her mind convinced her heart that it was not in love. But now, her heart was in pain and it called her mind a liar. Liar, you love him. Liar, you want him. Why did you lie? It was because her sister was also in love with him. She thought it wouldn't do good if she loved the same man as Shinobu. She also thought it was inappropriate to have feelings for someone younger than her, someone she first knew as a young boy. But people rarely have a choice in who they love, do they? And the heart wants what the heart can't have. She loves him, it's clear now. She just couldn't believe that it took losing him to finally realize that. It was like realizing how much you needed the sun after night came. She realized it too late, and that's why it hurts. Everything that happened next was a blur. Her whole being was occupied with the emotions she had been ignoring all this time. She was barely aware even when the fight between Seiji and Jaomi took place. She only snapped out of her daze when she saw him hurt with her sharp and medically trained eyes. She immediately ran up to him and analyzed his body. He was bruised in some places, and his final attack had managed to cause damage to his own body. But there were no other injuries. Thank God. Thank you, he said, and gave her a small smile. She did not know whether she liked him stoic or expressive. When he didn't smile, it nagged at her heart, but when he did, it increased her blood pressure. She simply mirrored his smile and ran off as quickly as possible. When did she start loving him? Was it when he hit puberty and grew into a handsome young man? Was it when he helped her save patients with his special eyes? Was it when he saved Kaneo and she saw his kindness? Or was it during the many times he saved her, when he was always there when she needed someone? She didn't know. She had been ignoring any feelings that emerged. Only now, when those feelings burst out, did she even realize she had feelings for him. Honestly, it was stupid of her. How immature. It was her mistake. Or was it? That was a question that appeared in her mind as she was waiting for him outside of the house while Seiji met Abuyashiki. Why was she acting like everything was over? She just realized that she loved him, and at the very next moment, she was supposed to destroy her love. Who decided that? A random girl whom he met a couple of months ago. She didn't think so. Kane had dedicated herself to others all her life. She dedicated herself to her sister, she sacrificed all her time and effort to save others as a doctor and risked her life every day to protect the weak. So this time, she thinks she deserves to be selfish just a little. She made the mistake of following her mind and staying passive with her feelings. Now she was going to follow her heart and act upon her feelings. Seiji was engaged, sure, but it couldn't be that serious yet, there was not enough time to be so. That meant she still had time to show her feelings, a simple engagement could always be broken again. She also apologized to her sister. If she did not act on it, Seiji was going to fall into another girl's hand anyway. So she decided to no longer ignore her feelings anymore. She loves him. She wants him. And she sure as hell was going to try and make him feel the same way. In another location, Mitsuri suddenly stopped eating her food as her womanly instincts felt a threat. Do you not like the food? Asked a woman who wore the standard demon slayer uniform with a katana strapped on her waist. Mitsuri snapped out of it and immediately said, No, it's nothing like that, the food is delicious. I know I'm not nearly as good at cooking compared to slaying demons. So by all means, don't be shy to say if you don't like it. I told you, it's not like that. Mitsuri said, I just suddenly had a weird feeling. It was logical. After all, the threat of an Wani-san with maximum era vibe going after your man was a threat, even to the likes of Mitsuri Kenroji. She was currently under the wings of a female demon slayer at the rank of Hino. She had been staying with her for a day, waiting for further instructions from the master of the Demon Slayer Corps. During this time, Mitsuri had learned much about demon slayers and the ongoing war between humans and demons. She also got to see firsthand how incredible demon slayers actually were. The girl beside her, Satsuki, was one of the strongest female demon slayers who was a water breath user. Mitsuri got to see her in battle firsthand and was surprised to find out that Satsuki was many times stronger than she was when she fought. That truly opened Mitsuri's eyes. She never thought she'd see a woman stronger than her before. She thought it was impossible. Satsuki, what did you say your rank was again? Mitsuri asked after a long stretch of silence. The middle-aged woman thought about it for a while before saying with pride, I am at the rank of Hino. The only ranks above me are Kinoto and Kino. There were only a handful of people who were at the rank of Hino, so she had every reason to be proud of her rank. I see, That's incredible, Mitsuri said while looking up at the sky. She was not used to camping outside as a city girl, but one thing she liked about it was the perpetual incredible views. Do you know a demon slayer by the name of Seiji Shirgan? Mitsuri asked. Her fiancé was always on her mind, but she suddenly missed him even more with the weird premonition in her heart. I thought you were new to the Demon Slayer Corps, so how did you know his name? Satsuki asked before she answered her own question. Oh, did he save you once? Yes, kinda, Mitsuri answered. He indeed saved her from a demon that night in the mountains. She did not want to elaborate more because she was still a bit shy. So, what rank will he be compared to you? People like Seiji Shirgan are not comparable to me. They are called the Hashiras, she answered. Mitsuri creased her eyebrows. She said there were only 2 ranks above her, Noto and Kino, so does that mean Seiji was a rank below her? Does that mean he is ranked below you? Satsuki blinked before she laughed. Ha ha ha, no, not like that. It's quite the opposite, Seiji Shirgan is too strong to be in the Demon Slayer ranks. Question mark. People like him are called Hashira, otherwise known as pillars. They are the pillars that support the Demon Slayer Corps as a whole. Currently, there are only 6 active pillars, she explained. The person who saved you, Seiji Shirgan, is especially special even among the pillars. He is said to be the single most important factor in the organization due to his sheer efficiency, often referred to as the Pillar of Pillars. Mitsuri was left speechless. Does that mean he is strong? Of course. He is probably the strongest. She answered, each of the Hashira is different from us normal human beings. They are the people who deal with the strongest demons. Mitsuri remembered the night when Seiji told her he was the strongest. She blushed when she realized that there was no bluff in his words. It was not that she didn't believe him then, but this was another layer of proof of his words. But in the midst of the admiration she felt, there was also a bubbling nervousness. She would have to work extremely hard to be able to fight alongside him. He was at the very top, and to always be beside him, she would need to reach there too. Whatever the case may be, Mitsuri was determined. And she believed that with her love, everything was possible. Can you tell me, how can I become a Hashira like him? Aiming tall, aren't we? Satsuki chuckled but thought none of it. But she continued the conversation anyway while they ate the food. Seiji's POV, okay, guys, it's an emergency. I repeat. It's a fucking emergency. What's the emergency, you asked? Here, let me feed you, Kane said, taking my bowl of rice before she extended her hand to feed me. It is her, she is the emergency. You know, I can feed myself now, I said with a strained smile, and she gave me a no-nonsense look. I insist, she said like a mother. Mommy? What else could I do except open my mouth obediently? After that, a small smile crept on her face. I swallowed the rice with an audible gulp before moving a bit away from her. But then she mirrored my movement and hopped closer to me like a small rabbit. How is it? It's fucking rice. How the fuck else would it taste like? It's good, I said. Yeah, well, the suspicion was true. Kane was in love with me. Or at least, she was acting like a high school girl in love, and she was trying to make me fall for her. And she was horrible at it. You'd expect an Wani-san like her to be extremely experienced and well-versed in the battles of love, but nope, Kane Kocho was horrible in trying to make me fall for her. Obviously, it was because she had never been in love before. It was her first time as much as it was mine. This was a complete contrast with her era vibe, and you know what? It was absolutely fucking adorable. Like, oh. Ma. God. Did you really put red camellia on the table and say you put them there for me? Red camellia symbolizes love and longing in flower language. I was aware of her feelings and knew what she was trying to do. She was so bad at it that even a dense harem isekai MC would be able to get the hint. But it was more effective than simply following the tradition and woo me very expertly. I couldn't help but gush inwardly how adorable she was. It has only been a day since we had the Hashira meeting, and I think she changed when she heard about my engagement with Mitsuri. Whatever feelings she had for me seemed to be dragged out to the surface when she heard about the engagement and realized that she was going to lose me. To be honest, I was still in the process of digesting that information. Kane was in love with him. You mean the girl who always treated me as a younger brother and constantly teased me as if I was a little kid, was in love with me? You mean the girl whom I had been peeking at for over 2 years in every spar we had was trying to earn my affection? When? How? Why? To say that I was sad and conflicted because I was already engaged with Mitsuri would be a big fat lie. Instead, I could only feel flattered and happy with the situation. Does that make me a scumbag? You are zoning out, Seiji, focus on the food. Kane snapped me out of my thoughts. Here, say ah. I didn't say ah like she asked. Instead, I opened my mouth widely in a hippopotamus ah way to assert dominance. She just giggled and continued feeding me. Did you notice that I was more unhinged than usual? Yeah, that was because I did not know how to react to her feelings. I'll be the first one to admit that I didn't get bitches in my past life. I was not ugly or a loser by any means, but I was 13 years old and no woman wanted to take the risk of loving me. So this was the first time I had the affection of 2 girls at once. And I did not want to reject either of them, and they meant a lot to me. On another hand, I was not a believer of harem like Tengen Yuzui. I believe in true love. I think true love was special and could only happen once with one person in your life. So I was in this weird dilemma where I focused only on the positive side and ignored the drama for the future me to face. You are pampering me a lot today. Is there something you want to ask? I played the dense main character role. I hid the fact that my eyes could see everything she wanted to hide. No reason. Is it really so strange that I care for my patient? She asked. When there were literally patients with broken limbs in the infirmary and you chose to feed me, then yes, it was a little strange. I guess not, I said, and let her continue to do as she liked. She continued feeding me until I finished my meal and I felt like my stomach couldn't hold any more. Would it be wrong for me to play dumb and simply enjoy her affection? Actually, don't answer that because I was going to do just that anyways. Can I get a lap pillow? A wise man once said you miss a 100% of the shots you don't take. So I will take a shot at every opportunity one have. Sure, fortune indeed favors the brave. The soft sensation of her flesh against my cheek was everything I thought I needed in life. It was warm and I could smell her, she smelled like flowers. Seiji, what kind of woman do you like? Kane asked while nudging me to look at her. I looked up at her and her face was almost entirely hidden by her melons even though she was leaning forward. Her eyes seemed genuinely curious to know the answer, so I thought about it for a few seconds. The kind of woman that loves me, I said in the end. She smiled. Of course, she will love you. But I meant more in terms of physical attributes. Is she really asking me the legendary boobs or butt question, which was a vital question always asked between middle school boys? Well, there were many physical attributes of women that attracted men. There was the pretty face, the boobs, the ass, the thighs, the legs, the feet, etc. I could say any of them and Kane Kocho should be happy because she was blessed in every single aspect of them. Such was the stunning beauty of the flower Hashira. But personally, my favorite was the one thing that raised men. Boobs. So yes, I was a boob man. I liked them cute and with a nice pair of boobs. I said. Boobs, huh, she said thoughtfully while looking at hers before her lips curved in self-satisfaction. What about you? What type of man do you like, Kane, both physically and in terms of character? I asked her in return. She hummed and thought about my question for a while before she said. I would prefer someone taller than me, not too scary looking and with kind eyes. And in terms of character. She trailed off before casting a glance at me. Then she covered my eyes with both hands and said, "You," my X-ray eyes froze and I felt my ears start to heat up, so I hid them. She took her soft hands away and with a smile, she said, "Someone strong, reliable and loves flowers, I guess." Okay. We spent another hour just staying like that and having small talk, which ranged from what happened while I was away to how Kaneo was progressing in her life. She said she was busy following Shinobu around and helping the patients. She never asked me about what happened in Tokyo or about my engagement though. I wonder if she was not interested or too afraid to ask. But in the end, all great things must come to a bitter end. And mine came in the form of Raven and a Kasagi crow. Raven flew towards me and landed on my chest, and a Kasagi crow flew overhead, dictating a mission for me. Although I loved my job, I think I love laying on Kane's lap more. Seiji Shirgan. Seiji Shirgan. You must travel to Mizuhara village, which was recently visited by a demon. Investigate and hunt down this demon. Duty calls, I guess. I guess you have to go now, Kane whispered softly. Stay safe in your mission, Seiji. You too, Kane. And remember what I tell you, please only take normal slaying missions and be extremely careful. I'll keep that in mind. Karma, Seiji's POV. I left the flower mansion the next morning after spending more time with Kane and Kaneo. Unfortunately, Shinobu was in her grinding phase, so we rarely had time to interact these days. The spar we had a few days ago was a rare occasion. I traveled towards the Mizuhara village. The village was known for its huge production of rice, and I went there to take rations for the Demon Slayer Corp before. I had eidetic memory, so I was able to trace my way to the village without being guided by a Kasugai crow. The village was not far away, and with my incredible speed, I was able to reach it before the afternoon rolled around. When I entered the village, I was immediately met with a gloomy atmosphere. The place was quiet as if it was abandoned. A quick scan of the whole village told me that most people had locked themselves inside their houses and they were mourning for the people they lost. I walked around the village and I talked to the first person I met and asked him in detail about what happened to the village. A total of 3 families, including the head of the town, had been brutally annihilated. It could not have been a criminal because nothing was stolen and we found no corpse of the dead. Many of us assumed that it was an attack from a monster or a wild animal, But what? I asked. But the only 2 survivors of the massacre, twin kids, they keep screaming it was a demon, an oni, the man said, and from his face, I could tell that he believed them. Have they not asked for more details? That's the thing. Both of them had gone deaf after the attack. The world stilled. My heart turned into lead in my chest and it weighs heavy and cold. Where can I meet them? I don't think you should meet them, but they are in the village hospital, the man said, and I nodded my head in thanks. I walked away and headed towards the hospital immediately, which was quite neat. Most villages didn't have hospitals, but I guess Mizuhara was not just any village with its rice production. Calm down, I said out loud while gripping my chest. This was familiar. It was all too familiar. It was not only familiar. It was exactly the same. A demon with the appearance of an old man. He had a hunched back and his body was full of wrinkles like it was decomposing. There was a mark in his left eye, kanji, and his scream robbed me of my hearing. The image of the demon brought out my darkest memories. A demon with the appearance of an old man, holding down my naked sister as he devoured her. A kanji in his eyes? I asked before writing my question down on a piece of paper and letting the boy read it. Yes. There was a mark on his left eye, a lower moon that was surprising but at the same time not. It was stated in the anime that the ranks of the lower moon kept on changing while the upper moon remained constant. So it was logical that the demon who attacked my family that night had now become a lower moon. Thank you for your help, kid, I said and gave a pat to the 8-year-old child. Just like he spared me, the old demon spared him and his twin brother too. I did not know why, but that demon seemed to spare children, maybe in a weird twisted way that was beyond his moral code. It had been a total of 3 days since the attack. The memory must still be new to the kid. I did not want to make him remember, but it couldn't be helped. I remember being pissed that everyone kept asking me about it when it happened to me. "Are you going to fight that demon, mister?" The kid asked me with his big eyes with dark bags. I paused. Then I smiled. I took up the notebook and pencil again and wrote my answer. Fighting was not the right word. He was not worth fighting. Instead, I will do something far crueler. I am just going to talk to him. I will let him know all of the pain he has caused to you and everyone he has ever encountered. After that, I got up from the bed and left the room. Everything was quiet as I walked out of the hospital and out of the village. The people looked at me, but they only saw a stoic face which they could not read. But after I left the village, when I was all alone in the forest, my facade broke and bloodlust rolled off my body, chasing away the insects, birds and any other being with sentience. Well, it all came back full circle. I chuckled at the ridiculousness of it all. I thought the old demon was some small fry and that he would have probably died at this point. But it seemed not only was he alive, but he had gotten even stronger. "Thank God you are alive." "Thank you," I said, and the emotions in my chest forced tears out of my eyes. Then the purple orbs in my eyes started giving off a deep glow as I activated the transparent world at its full capacity and more. I gazed upon the forest and the world bore her naked truth to me. I could see visions of the past with the help of the sheer details my eyes were able to see. I saw a footprint of a deer, and from the depth alone, I was able to deduce the size and weight of said animal and how it stepped on it. The scene played in my mind as if reality rewinded. I could tell the speed at which it moved, where it stopped and sniffed the air, which blade of grass he ate and so on. It was like in the movies when a detective checked a crime scene and constructed what happened in his mind. But unlike them, what was happening to me was not limited to one place but to the whole world around me. I felt a buzz in my brain and my eyes worked like never before. This was the first time I had accomplished such feats. My eyes really were more than the transparent world at this point, I was sure. It was evolving as I aged and gained experience. Maybe it was similar to the Sharingan with how they were responding to my hate. I thought to myself. But I did not spare any time to linger on such thoughts. I walked around the forest, looking at the smallest detail of everything as my mind constructed scenes of what happened an hour before, 3 hours before, a day before, 3 days before. Until eventually, I found a clue. Dried blood on the leaves. It could have been the blood of any animal, impossible to distinguish, but my eyes were able to do so. I looked closely at the blood, focusing my entire being on it. From the dryness and the mix of water, I could tell that it was a few days old. Then from the size and shape of the red blood cells, I could tell that it was the blood of a human. Most animals had larger cells than humans, and those cells had nuclei. Human red blood cells were circular and without a nucleus. So it was not difficult for my eyes to differentiate them. Then I changed my gaze to the direction of the blood and I saw broken twigs and plants, making a trail. From those things, I deduced the size of the creature passing through, and it fit the size of the old demon I remembered. I could vividly imagine the demon going through this forest after it had a good meal. His white hair drenched in blood left droplets of blood. "Found you," I said, and my eyes glowed brighter and my tears had turned red due to the overuse of my eyes. It was going to be a wonderful reunion after 9 years. Third POV, Lower Moon Demon ranked second. Onryoku. He has the appearance of an old man with a hunched back. He had a balding head with sparse white hair falling from his head and skin that was wrinkled more than an old rag. He was a demon who traveled around Japan, always moving. He would sneak into villages and slaughter whoever he wanted and eat them before continuing his journey. Well, to call it a journey would be incorrect because he had no destination. Instead, he felt safer when he never stayed in the same place. He was at ease when he was always running away. Running from who exactly? He was running away from his karma. He was one of the oldest demons in existence. It could be said that from his travels, he knew the landscapes of Japan like the back of his hand. That was why he never even had to hide, no one could find him. But today, it was different. Someone finally found him. Hum hum, a rhythmic humming noise left his mouth. He sent out sound waves that the human ears couldn't hear, they were ultrasound. Then from the sound waves that reflected back to his ears, he could make a mental map of the surroundings in his head. It was echolocation, a special ability that animals like bats and dolphins could use. And just like before, everything was fine except the human that was following his tail a little while way back was still there. The demon had been changing his direction and tried his best to escape because he did not want conflict unless he was hungry. But the human kept on following him. The man did not try to catch up to him and was seemingly satisfied with just following his trail. Onryoku has had enough of playing cat and mouse. It's been 4 days since I ate my last meal anyways, I could use a snack, he thought to himself, not taking the human as a threat. He should have been more afraid and took the human seriously. Maybe then he would realize that he was being hunted. Onryoku looked at the moon and determined that sunrise was still hours away. He could kill the follower and enjoy eating the human for as long as he wanted. He picked up the best ambush place and hid behind a large rock with deep cover. He stayed hidden and waited for his prey. A few minutes later, the human finally stopped. The man was a few meters away from the boulder where he was hiding. Finally, I caught you, the man said as if he could see through the boulder. Realizing that he had been discovered, Onryoku jumped out from his hiding spot and landed on top of the boulder. He took a look at the human and he was shocked, to say the least. Purple eyes locked on him immediately. They had blood flowing out of them which the man quickly wiped away. I've seen those eyes before, but where? Onryoku asked himself thoughtfully. Then he saw the long sword carried by the young man in his left hand. He had already expected the human to be a demon slayer from the way he was being tracked, so it was no surprise. The man slowly pulled out his sword and Onryoku was finally hit with a surprise. Evil demon. Destroyer Ahashira. No, that long sword and the color purple. It was him. I have so many things to tell you. And so, karma finally caught up to the demon who always ran. Seiji's POV, I have so many things to tell you. My breath hitched, there were so many things I wanted to say so they clogged my throat. In the end, the biggest and most honest sentence came out of my lips. I hate you so much, my hatred was so intense that it felt like swallowing lava. His mere existence, the fact that he stood in the same reality as me, incited so much resentment that I wanted to tear this reality like a child throwing a tantrum. This is not me. This cannot be me, the sanest part of me screamed in the corner of my mind. I was not funny, I was not nice, I was not good. I was nothing I thought I was at the moment. It felt like all the challenges I had gone through, all the character development I had, they were all meaningless. At that moment when he was in my direct line of sight, I still felt like the little boy who just lost everything. I was so petty, I was so bitter and so hateful. I wanted to burn this world of fiction to ashes just for having someone like him. In my mind, I did not want to live in a world stained by this vermin. Words couldn't describe my feelings, and I seethed. I hate that he made me this hateful, so I hated him more. It became this endless cycle where my spite and hate doubled infinitely, again and again and again. Confronted by traumas I had been ignoring all this time, I was surprised to see what I had turned into. Was this really me? Was I this cynical and malevolent deep down? I thought I was a better person. I thought I was kinder. It's all because of you, I said with a face void of emotion. My voice was even more hollow. Because at this point, facial expressions could not mirror the emotions in my heart and they just gave up. But my eyes were a window to my soul, so they were glowing in ominous light. The old demon narrowed his nasty eyes at me. He had seemed to come to the conclusion that I was completely insane. I know you, he said, they say to be wary of you, then he opened his mouth and released a sonic scream that shook the earth. The vibrations washed over me, rattling my bones, but it did no other damage. His attack had no effect on me. "You are deaf," he said. "That's fine." He opened his mouth again and I predicated his next action. He was going to release a sonic scream again, but this time, it would produce intense shockwaves that could rip apart the ground and destroy boulders. But he never got to that part because... Thunderclap and flash, I appeared in front of him in an instant. Instant was too quick for him to react. Instant was too fast for him to think of counterattacks. But it was also enough for him to despair and just enough for fear to engulf his whole body as I plunged my sword into his mouth. I drove my long blade down his throat and sliced open his voice box and his vocal cords, which was where the shrilling screams were produced. Then I pushed my knee against his chest, driving all of the momentum I had into his ribs. His chest caved in and air was knocked out of his lungs. A sonic boom exploded and he was sent flying away. Asterisk boom. Asterisk his body crashed and shattered against many trees. His bones bent in the wrong ways and tendons snapped when he crashed so violently against the ground. I've said it before, but I was not here to fight. This was not a moment where the main character faced his trauma and fought bravely against the enemy who hurt him in the past. It was not an inspiring moment where he overcame challenges and finally grew as a person. This was just me, hating on someone with my entire being like the little child I am deep inside. I have not moved an inch. I haven't grown a single day. Wind breathing, first form, I dashed forward with the violence of a storm. Whirlwind cutter, I slashed continuously in a horizontal cyclonic pattern. Sharp wind blades encased my body and I shot forward like a tornado. Everything was cut in my path. The trees were cut down and so were the rocks and the bushes. I literally carved out a path leading to the demon. Even with his regeneration, he had no time to heal completely. By the time he was about to get up, his body was finally minced into tiny little pieces. But I sliced him only with the wind blades so they did not inflict the damage a direct cut from the Nichiren blade would have. So he slowly came together again under me. When his face fully formed, I could finally see the terror in his demonic eyes. Yet he was nowhere near as terrified as I was that night. They said an eye for an eye, I disagree. For an eye, I wanted everything. It was not about letting him experience the same pain I did. It was about letting him experience worse. You don't remember, do you? I said while waiting for him to fully regenerate. That night when you slaughtered my family right before my eyes and left me with their remains, your leftover meal, it was understandable. What was the saying again? A hammer doesn't remember the nails, but the nail remembers the hammer. After his legs regenerated, he immediately pushed himself off the ground to flee. He was as fast as you would expect a demon running for his life to be. I watched him run like I watched him leave my house back then. The two different scenes merged in my mind. I leapt into the air, jumping high above even the tallest trees. Thunder wind breathing, unerring lance, I threw my sword with speed far surpassing sound. A sonic boom erupted and it nailed the demon on the ground with a terrible explosion. I landed on the ground and made my way towards the demon. He was trying to take out my sword which pinned him to the ground, but his hand burnt when he grabbed my Nichiren blade. The ores which were used to make the Nichiren swords were like solar batteries. They absorbed sunlight. When I reached him, I took a moment to appreciate his helplessness. The memories of when I tried to crawl helplessly to my sister merged with the scene. He was screaming helplessly too. I wished I could hear his screams. I really wished I could. I grabbed the hilt of my sword and pulled it out. Immediately the demon jumped at me. He realized he couldn't run, so he decided to attack me with everything he had. I saw everything he tried to do as if I could see the future. But before anything happened, I cut off both his arms with a swift stroke of my blade. Water breathing, first form, his planned attacks were stopped before they could happen. Water surface slash, he staggered back, blood spurting out of the stump of his limbs. I hated how easily I was able to cut him. It did not hurt enough. I looked at my pristine sword and after a single second of hesitation, I smashed my sword against a stone nearby. I hit the rock with my blade in such a way that the sharp edge was chipped away. I cringed while doing so. Due to my eyes, I always wanted things to be perfect and beautiful. But all that was discarded as I chipped my sword like how Inosuke did. By then, the demon had already healed and he was just standing still. Running doesn't work, and fighting doesn't work. So he did nothing. Fire breathing, second form, I picked what I thought would hurt the most. Scorching Sunday. Words couldn't describe how much I hated him. So I let my actions describe my hate. After all, they said actions speak louder than words. I wanted him to know. I wanted to feel what that child felt on that night. Seiji's POV, hatred was bitter. Like medicine. And like medicine, although bitter, it makes you feel better afterwards. I didn't know who it was that propagated the idea that hate was a way to destroy oneself and revenge only left a person more hollow than before, but I knew that they were liars. Or maybe they were not completely true because that statement didn't apply to me. Please, en no morii, a slushy mess of flesh and bone said to me. What is love, baby, don't hurt me, no more, I sang in return, with a smile that showed the weight that had been lifted off my chest. Did you know that I was never fond of songs because I was deaf? I had to put my hand on a speaker and feel the vibration to get close to appreciating songs, like Miles from Baby Driver. But obviously, I knew about songs like Rick Roll and Baby Don't Hurt Me because of the memes. The sun had already begun peeking out from the mountains at this point, but I put the old demon in a shade to keep him from disintegrating. Why are you being so dramatic? You act as if you have been exposed to the cruelest torture for a whole night. I said with a chuckle. I extended my hand and allowed a few drops of blood to fall from the cut in my palm. Come on, drink up and heal. I think I nearly got the hang of beast breathing by repeatedly grinding you into a paste, I said, but the spoiled fruit-looking demon remained unresponsive. At this point, I was not really annoyed. I had my fill of violence. I could not imagine a way to inflict more pain on him. My hatred by no means had run out. It was just that I no longer had beef with this specific demon. I knew that although he was the one who killed my parents, he was just a pawn of the ultimate cause of their deaths. For example, an earthquake happened and a slab of concrete crushed a man. It was the slab of concrete that directly killed him, but the main reason behind it was the earthquake. Similarly, it was demons in general and Musen Kibutsuji that were the main cause. I kept on poking the demon with my sword while deep in thought until the sun had risen high enough to finally put an end to the demon. After the existence of the vermin was finally removed from the world, I took a deep breath. A breath of fresh air that I did not share with that stain. It felt more refreshing than usual, like the world suddenly had an AC. For a long time, I used to think that hate led a man nowhere but self-destruction. As I said, we've all seen Naruto and we all know where hatred led the Uchihas. But you know what? My 16-year-old self believes that hate can indeed lead a man where he wants and give him fulfillment, the same as love does. And revenge was sweet, it was not empty. If you felt empty after enacting revenge, you probably didn't do it enough. So I'll keep on being a hater without an ounce of apology. I didn't have to be a kind-hearted soul who healed with the power of love and forgiveness. I would heal my trauma with the bitterness of hate and revenge. If I realized that my belief was stupid and wrong by the time I matured more in my 30s, then, I'll leave that to future me. Sucks to be him. But then again, what 30-year-old man did not have to deal with the consequences of their younger self? You do stupid things in your teenage years and deal with the consequences as a middle-aged man, that's how it usually goes for most people. Well, enough about justifying how I was going to be a professional hater. I think it would do me good to finally check up on Mitsuri and visit Rengoku while doing so. I need my love Hashira to dilute all the spite and hate in me. Seiji. Her pink hair was dancing to the tunes of the wind while she ran up to me with the enthusiasm of a child on a Christmas morning. She wore a kaigoki, a white long-sleeved shirt with black pants, which told me that she was in the middle of training. Her signature big tits were bobbing up and down when she ran up to me as if they were happily greeting me. Yet no matter how much her sexy body attracted a perverted man like me, my gaze was glued to her smile. Was it strange that her smile was the one that made my heart skip a beat? She looked so happy. It was a privilege, I told myself, that someone was that happy for my mere existence. It made me appreciate life. The rest of the world fades away and my incredible eyesight only saw her. That was probably why I didn't see him coming. Seiji. A voice with more vibrations. Which meant that it was deeper and more masculine called out to me, and the fact that I could see the vibrations meant that it was close. I felt a rush of wind on my skin and a hard chest, obviously not Mitsuri's, smashed on my stomach and tackled me to the ground. We fell. Ha 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 ha. I opened my eyes to see Rengoku laughing above me. You disappeared for 3 months and suddenly sent your fiancé to train under me? You sure are a character, my friend, he exclaimed. Not the waifu I was expecting, but okay. Then Mitsuri finally reached me with tears of joy running down her face. She threw herself on top of me, pressing her whole body against mine. My arms immediately wrapped around her as if that was their natural state. Finally, a soft chest pressed against mine and I closed my eyes to feel her warmth. She was saying things but I didn't see them. I only said, "I miss you too." After the heartfelt reunion, we went inside Rengoku's house. For the record, this was not his father's house. He had his own home which he bought due to my suggestion. I admitted that I might beat up his father in one of his drunken episodes. If we fought, he wouldn't know whose side to take, so he bought the house. Now Mitsuri was sitting beside me, her head leaning on my shoulder while I sipped tea. Rengoku was in the kitchen for a while before he came out with some snacks and a tea of his own. "So, how have you been?" he asked me while settling down opposite to me. "Better than ever before," I said and paused, thinking about what happened last night. Finally, I gave a genuine smile. "I killed the demon that ate my family." Rengoku nearly choked on his tea and Mitsuri froze. "Pardon?" "I killed the old demon who attacked and devoured my family that night." "Well, technically he died from the sun, but I tortured him the entire night," I repeated myself calmly like I was commenting on the weather. "That is quite a heavy statement," he said thoughtfully and rubbed his chin. "I'm lost for words." "There's no need for words, I'm okay," I said, and Mitsuri held my hand with concern. I thought I would never see him again, so it was a pleasant surprise. My experience actually made me face my past and allowed me to have a new perspective, so everything turned out for the better. From now on, when I wake up in the middle of the night due to having a nightmare, I will find comfort. When the scene of my sister getting devoured alive played in my mind, the scene of the same demon groveling like a worm under me would also play alongside it. It was not a cure, but it soothed the pain. Not only that, I accepted the fact that I was spiteful and that revenge satisfied me. I was a professional hater. I looked between Rengoku and Mitsuri with a hidden smile. Maybe it was because they were opposites to me that I liked them so much. They were everything I was not. If they were in my shoes, they would probably forgive and fight to make sure nothing like that happened to anyone else. "What about you, Rengoku? Anything happened in these 3 months?" "Nothing noteworthy like yours. I trained a lot and completed some assignments." "What rank are you now?" I asked. "Kinoto." "Oh," I blinked. "So you are only 1 rank away from being a Hashira now." Rengoku was not speedrunning being a Hashira like me, nor was he a genius with overpowered eyes. So his growth was more steady and slow. But it still came as a surprise that he moved up the ranks so quickly. "Yeah. I hope to fight alongside you soon, shoulder to shoulder," he said with a wide grin. "I never consider you to be below me, Rengoku, you were always my equal," I said, and he laughed, not wanting to argue. "What about you, Mitsuri? You've been awfully quiet," I said, and she lowered her head when I looked at her. "What's with her? Are you mad at me?" she suddenly asked under my gaze. It took me a while to even realize why she would think I would be mad at her. That's how much I was not mad. You told me to stay at home and wait for you. But I disobeyed your words and came after you, she said in a soft tone that was not her at all. Would I make for a bad wife? She looked up at me, big emerald eyes glittering with tears. I nearly forgot that this was the 1920s in Japan. Wives were expected to listen to their husbands and not go against their words. Even though I assumed that she could make her own decisions, she might think that I would be mad at her for it. My arms immediately wrapped around her small waist, which was seemingly shaped to be held by a man, and pulled her even closer to me. She blushed, and I liked that her guilty face was replaced with a bashful one. Of course, I'm not mad, silly, I kissed her forehead. Instead, I'm deeply glad that you wanted to help me and remain by my side. She gave me a smile full of relief. Now tell me what happened to you so far, I said, and moved away from her because I saw that Rengoku was looking away. It was not appropriate to be too intimate in the company of others, Japanese culture. Well, it happened one day when I decided to run away from home to come to you. Then I realized I didn't know where you were, but that was when this black crow with a scary voice came. Mitsuri started and retold her experience so far. I listened to her with great attention. For a deaf man, you'd be surprised that I made for a good listener. We also discussed about how she was going to train. I told them my plan of making her learn fire breathing with Rengoku first and then her becoming my Tsuguko after she became a demon slayer. I enjoyed the company of two of the most positive people in the whole world. You couldn't help but feel like the world was sunshine and rainbow when you were with them. Not that they were naive or delusional by any means. Rengoku just gave off this reliable aura that nothing bad would happen when I was around him. Even though I knew he was many levels weaker than me, his bravery and courage made me feel at ease. Then there was Mitsuri. My eyes saw the naked truth of the world, in all its cruelty and tragedy. But when I was with her, I would look at the world through the reflection of her emerald eyes, and it was beautiful. The world she saw was beautiful, and when I was with her, she allowed me to see glimpses of her world. It inspired me to make the world as beautiful as she saw it. And it goes without mentioning, we ate a lot of food as well. Rengoku and Mitsuri were great cooks, so I ate a week's worth. It was fun and precious time every second I spent with the people I love. It was also another reason to hate the demons. I won't let them take this away from me. Like that one ghost said, hatred was born in order to protect love. Third POV, Seiji is what? Even Kaneo, who was a few rooms away studying, showed a reaction. She hopped in her place like a timid rabbit and her face was genuinely shocked. Keep it down, will you? Kane said and put a hand on Shinobu's mouth. Zeesh. Shinobu kept eye contact with her sister and she took long and controlled breaths before she finally calmed down. Kane removed her hand and then Shinobu immediately asked her the biggest question in her mind. Seiji is engaged. With who? That's the thing, I don't know. Wait, when did you even learn about this? In the Hashira meeting we had 4 days ago. Master Abuyashiki congratulated him on his engagement and it was only then that I found out, Kane said. So that means it's true, Shinobu said, her voice laced with emotions. That bastard, why didn't he tell me? I was initially upset about it as well, but then I realized that he had no reason to tell us, Kane said brutally, slightly offending Shinobu, who thought they were close enough with Seiji to be informed of these things. It's his private affairs, and from what I observed, it seemed like he did not have much attachment to the person he is engaged to, Kane said thoughtfully. You mean, he only accepted it to honor his parents or something? Exactly, but how can you be sure? You don't even know who he is engaged to. I don't. Why didn't you ask him about the details? Shinobu asked with eyes narrowed in confusion. Kane remained silent for a while before she released a sigh, because I was afraid. That only made Shinobu confused. The thing is, Shinobu. There was a dramatic pause. The two sisters were alone in their shared room and there was no other sound disturbing them. The silence was loud. I'm in love with Seiji as well. There was an awkward moment where the two sisters just stared at each other. Kane was scanning her younger sister's face to find any reaction, but Shinbu's face was just deadpan. Then Shinbu finally closed her eyes and gave a harmless smile. It was her signature smile we saw in the anime. Don't tell me that's the punchline after all the build-up, eh? Kane blinked dumbly. Seriously? Did you only realize that you loved him 4 days ago? Eh? Wait a minute, you knew? Kane asked, now she was the one who lost composure. It was a justified thought. Imagine seeing someone who was more aware of your feelings than you. How out of touch with your emotions do you have to be for such a thing to happen? It was embarrassing, very much so, because she was the older sister. How did you know? Kane had been ignoring her feelings for Seiji all this time due to her morals. But just because she ignored them doesn't mean that those feelings were not there. In fact, they were always there and people could see it in her behavior even though she herself was unaware of it. I wouldn't say I knew it, but I kind of expected it, so it came as no surprise, Shinobu shrugged. It was like seeing dark clouds in the sky, you were not surprised it rained. I also have feelings for him, so it was easy enough to notice how you looked at him. You see him in the same light as I saw him. You would stare at him for a long time without even realizing it, and oftentimes when he was away on a mission, you would look at the traces he left in the mansion and smile fondly, remembering him. Shinobu said, and Kane at this point was too embarrassed, so she stopped her. But love, huh? Shinobu smiled. Gez, big sis, that's a heavy word, even she would not be so bold as to claim she loved Seiji. She knew that she liked him, but there was a big difference between simply liking someone and loving them. Kane remained silent after the comment. There was not a doubt in her mind even after that. She loved him, it was beyond just liking someone. The difference in their feelings came from the fact that Kane was given much more attention and saved many times by Seiji. Meanwhile, he would only train and spend time hunting demons with Shinobu. This sucks. I feel like I'm losing something even though it was never mine, Shinobu said and flopped on her futon. Kane remained in her place and watched her sister in silence. Shinobu took a pillow and covered her face, but otherwise, she made no further comments. Seeing that, she silently made her way outside of the room, and when she slid the door closed she released a sigh of relief. She was relieved that Shinobu's feelings for Seiji seemed to be way lesser than hers. Her sister already seemed to be giving up and was in the process of getting over him. That was good. She always thought that her sister's feelings were the same or even more than hers, but she learned today that it was not true, amongst other things she learned. Now the last thread of hesitance snapped. She smiled a knowing smile, a hopeful smile. Third POV, hey, I heard from some lower demons that there is a beautiful girl in the Demon Slayer Corps who uses flower breathing, a white-haired demon with blood on his lips said to another demon who was kneeling before him. The white-haired demon had rainbow-colored eyes that seemed to see everything in this world as amusement, something he could toy with. He was lying on his side and his right hand held the ample thigh of a beautiful woman. They say she has the beauty of a fairy, moving with grace and elegance while she slayed demons. Lord Doma, you must be talking about Kane Kocho, the flower Hashira, the demon kneeling down said. He was a demon slayer who chose to become a demon due to his greed for immortality. The upper moon too, Doma, had kept him around him at his whims. He would ask trivial questions he had about the Demon Slayer Corps and humans in general. Which village had the most beautiful girls, how life as a demon slayer was, where and how the Nichiren blades were made, and like the question he asked now, who was the beautiful woman in the Demon Slayer Corps? She is the greatest healer of the Demon Slayer Corps, and she is indeed a beautiful woman, the best I've seen myself, the demon said. Doma hummed and looked at the human leg he was holding. It had the soft flesh of a beautiful woman, it was a delicacy. I wonder, what she tastes like. He whispered. He thought about it for a moment and his desire seemed to mix well with their master's wish, which was the eradication of the Demon Slayer Corporation. Killing their healer should dramatically weaken them, right? Can you get her to me? Doma asked with an innocent smile, like a close friend asking you to treat them to food. Ah, the demon gulped. Well, she rarely leaves the flower mansion since she is the main doctor. But oftentimes she would go to villages that have been infected by diseases that spread naturally or due to the blood demon art of a demon. Domu tilted his head to the side, his smile was still the same but it suddenly looked less friendly. Why are you talking so much, can you do it or not? A killing intent so chilling washed over the lower demon. I can. I can, the demon yelled as the killing intent faded. It will take some time but I can do it with my blood demon art. That's great then. Doma said with a friendly grin, but don't make me wait too long, lest I kill you in my boredom. The demon was lost for words. After a long silence, he simply said, I understand. Seiji had thought all this time that Kane encountered Doma due to a weird twist of fate and misfortune. He thought that his existence alone and the fact that he warned Kane many times would be able to change this fate. But turns out that it was never an encounter of chance that Kane met Doma. She was targeted. Huh, I am oddly excited about this, Doma commented while looking at his arm which trembled slightly. But was it really excitement that he felt? Doma, who was so detached from emotions and often said to be emotionless, did not know better. Was it excitement or was it fear that stemmed from the bad premonition in his heart? Every supernatural part of him, instincts, spells, and each individual cell, yelling. Screaming at him. Don't do it. Steroid breathing, Seiji's POV. After we had a nice conversation while drinking tea, Rengoku decided to resume his training. He left me and Mitsuri alone so that we could spend time together, but instead of doing so, I brought Mitsuri outside to train her. If she was going to become a demon slayer, I would make sure that she was the strongest that she could be. It would not only be a huge help to humanity but most importantly, it would keep her safe. I'm going to teach you a breathing style I created myself. It is not a complete breathing style, so think of it as training wheels, I said. She had stars in her eyes that told me that she was excited to learn whatever it was I was going to teach her. She was excited but she raised her hand in question. I smiled seeing her that, it's only the two of us Mitsuri, you don't have to raise your hand, I told her. What is it? What is a breathing style? A realization struck me like lightning and I robotically turned my head to Rengoku, who was engrossed in his own physical training. That guy had not even told her what breathing styles were. Was it really a good idea to leave her with him? I helplessly shook my head and explained, breathing styles are the main tools of a demon slayer. By mastering certain breathing patterns and training your lungs to maximize your intake of oxygen, you can achieve supernatural strength. I paused. Do you understand? Yes, she tilted her head. She didn't understand. Well, I guess we would have to start with the very basic of the basics. Not that I was complaining, teaching her was not a chore at all. She was mine after all, it was the same as training myself. Well, let's sit down and practice first, shall we? I said, and we both sat down in a lotus position. We were facing each other and I grabbed her hand with one hand and I pushed my other hand on her chest. At first, my hands sank into her soft bosom and she blushed, but they stopped when I pressed on her ribs. I acted professionally even though it demanded great self-control. I felt the rhythmic expansion and contraction of her chest. My eyes glow purple and I used an X-ray to see her pink healthy lungs. Like the rest of her body, her lungs were exceptionally large and powerful. With my eyes and her already insane body, it would not be hard to teach her the basics at all. In fact, it would not be hard to get her to the level of a Hashira. What I'm about to teach you, like I said, is a breathing style that I created a long time ago. It is the easiest breathing to learn and also the most effective constant breathing, I said, and started guiding her through the breathing patterns. It's called steroid breathing. Steroid breathing allows your body to fully utilize your muscle capacity and also promotes quick regeneration and growth of the muscles. It was a breathing style that depended heavily on the user's body. If your body was strong and you were genetically blessed, steroid breathing would work better on you. Like the substance it was named after, it was an enhancement to your body. So the stronger your body, the stronger the enhancement. Now imagine the enhancement on someone as special as Mitsuri who had pink muscles that were also 8 times denser than regular humans. That would be a female version of Jaiomai. And so, I started cooking up a monster in the form of a cute waifu. The result of my effort would not be visible so soon, but it was the beginning. Also, I could rest easy knowing that steroid breathing would live on. We spent the entire day training together. Mitsuri was not acting spoiled or anything with me, instead she was quite the opposite. She was trying her hardest, she put more effort into training with me than she had ever done while she was training with Rengoku, he told me. She did not want to disappoint me, so she tried her very best. That meant progress was quick. I could see her lungs with my eyes and I could guide her in detail to learn the breathing pattern. When she faced problems or had trouble learning, I would help her by pushing at her chest and forcing the air out of her lungs in the correct pattern. That was a great help to her as she could feel what the correct way was, she only had to imitate. She learned steroid breathing in no time. Now if she just learned constant breathing, it would greatly aid her in her training and recovery. Hopefully, she doesn't grow a beard or something. I would only be able to coach her for a day, so I wrote manuals that she could follow and gifted them to her. At the end of our training, it was already dark and we went inside the house, cleaned ourselves and quickly went to bed. I slept with Mitsuri, much to her giddy joy and embarrassment. I did nothing lewd to her or anything, even though she would offer not an ounce of resistance if I pushed myself on her. I didn't know why or how I did that either. I guess when you were certain that something was yours, you did not immediately devour it. Instead, you cherish it because you are certain that no one will take it away from you. But I remember just holding her tightly in my arms and I had one of the best sleep I'd ever had. I woke up early the next morning before the sun had even risen. Rengoku had also already woken up, but Mitsuri was still sleeping peacefully. I silently got all of my gear and clothes together and with a final kiss on the sleeping Mitsuri, I decided to leave. My next destination was the swordsmith village where I would fix my sword. You're leaving. Don't you think you should say goodbye to her? Rengoku asked when I was about to open the door. No, she's better off sleeping. Besides, she said she hated goodbyes because it gave her the feeling that we wouldn't see each other again. Where are you headed to? Another mission. I will go to the swordsmith village to get my sword fixed, I said and pulled out my chipped sword for him to see. His face immediately turned into shock. I internally cringed as well when I saw the flawed state of my sword. I always kept it in a pristine and perfect condition, just like myself and my clothes. Perfect movement also allowed me to make sure I never chipped my sword or damaged it, so this was a shocking sight indeed. What happened? He asked. It's from the other night when I ran into that demon, I answered, looking away from the ugly sword. You look like you have something to say, I said when I saw the look on his face. I was great at reading people, so I knew. It's just, my friend, Rengoku started, his vibrant yellow eyes like raging fire locked on mine with concern. Please take care of yourself. And make sure no matter what you feel, never let your emotions change you, he said. I will keep that in mind. Don't be like my father, he said, and that finally pierced his words to my heart. His father was a man who was controlled and changed by the deep sorrow and sadness he had inside. He became hateful, he became a victim of his trauma and emotions. I took another look at my sword, a byproduct of my hate for that old demon. My rage and hatred had made me do things that I would never do otherwise. Thank you, I flashed a smile at Rengoku. You are a great friend, ha 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 ha, he laughed, but making sure it was not too loud. I try to be. He seemed proud that I appreciated his advice. Unlike his father who would throw hands for it. Of course, seeing that, he had to add more. Keep your heart ablaze, Seiji, be warm to your friends and burn your enemies. And make sure you don't burn yourself, yeah, too much and it's corny. You can keep your ancestors' motto to yourself, I said, slid open the door and left. It was not the first time that he said those phrases, those were written in the flame-breathing manual. I could imagine him laughing behind me as I left with a new light in my eyes. Ha, I still had a lot to learn, huh? The journey was just starting. Seiji's POV, I reached the swordsmith village in under a day. The terrain was rough, and since it was meant to be in a hidden location, there were many secret routes that I had to tread, but I was able to reach the swordsmith village with zero trouble. I did not waste time and gave my sword to Hanzo, who was absolutely shocked when he saw the state it was in. But since it was my first time and I had a good record of maintaining my sword, he did not scold me. Instead, he gave me my old odachi and said to wait a few days for my sword to be repaired. It was the sword of a hashira, which was made with the best quality, so even repairing it would take some time. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, I said with a bow. Don't worry about it, these things happen. But make sure you be careful next time, he said, and immediately went to his workshop to fix my sword. Having accomplished my task, I left the swordsmith village. Although I regret not enjoying the hot springs, I had no time to waste anymore. With ravens sitting on top of my head, I immediately started getting assignments. I traveled towards the east and cleared any mission that popped up in that direction. In just 2 nights, I was able to slay a total of 8 demons and complete 5 assignments. I was not called the most efficient hashira for nothing. My eyes, which underwent an upgrade while I was tracking the old demon, were now even more effective in completing missions. A single glance around the forest and I could easily track any demon. But on the 3rd day, I slept in the morning, and when noon arrived, I continued my travel. I was in the territory of the water hashira, and just like I hoped, I ran into Ju while he was on patrol. A day patrol mostly consisted of the hashira checking the surroundings to see if there were any traces of a demon left the previous night. I met with Ju and we decided to go to a restaurant nearby to have lunch. We ordered miso ramen and enjoyed the meal together. I heard that you killed a lower moon again. Thank you for your work, Ju said before slurping on his noodles. By the way, it was good manners to slurp the noodles loudly in Japan because it told the chef that you were enjoying them. I could not hear it, but I imagined this to be an annoying tradition for most people. It was my pleasure to slaughter them, I admitted with a shrug while enjoying the soup. What about you? I heard that you took a new Tsuguko again. One difference my existence made was that Ju was now comfortable in his identity as a hashira. So he had taken quite a number of Tsukugo even though he had taken none in the anime. Ju gave me a nod. How long? I asked with knowing eyes. He spent 2 months with me before he created his own breathing style and left, Ju said, trying to remain stoic, but I could see that he was depressed. He had been taking many Tsuguko and tried to train them to become his successor, but they all left one way or another. Most of them just created their own breathing style instead of mastering water breathing. That was the problem with water breathing. It was so versatile that many ended up creating a different variation. Most of the unique breathing styles were derived from water breathing, like flower breathing, insect breathing, oil breathing, ice breathing, etc. I was hopeful this time because the candidate was very talented. But in the end, he branched out from the water breathing line, Ju said. Really? What was his name? Abanai Iguro. He created the serpent breathing. I paused for a second before swallowing my soup loudly. Abanai. Like the kid with 2 eye colors? Yes, and don't call him a kid, Seiji, he is older than you, he replied. How did you know him anyway, he asked. Met him in one of my missions, I said, and he nodded, accepting my answer. That was an interesting piece of news. I never thought that Abanai would be a Tsuguko of Ju at any point in his life. I remember in the anime that they had some beef. Wait, did you two even get along? I asked, and Ju was hesitant to answer at first before he said. I got along with him, I laughed. That was such a sad sentence. Why would nobody become friends with my good boy Ju? He was so nice. Well, maybe his facial expression needed some work. He was too aloof, no one other than me could read him at all. So, what rank is he in now? Tsukino, Ju answered. Interesting, he should need at least 1 more year before becoming hashira. But I couldn't wait to meet him. Hopefully, he didn't crush on Mitsuri as he did in canon, lest I crush him. We enjoyed the rest of our lunch before we separated again. A friend we may be, but we had our own duties and responsibility. The next day, my sword was finally finished and Hanzo came to deliver it to me. And so the life of the steroid Hashira continued. 2 months passed, Seiji's POV, 2 months later, that looks good on you, hello, I am a scumbag. You can beat me anytime if you are capable and make sure to tell your daughters to stay away from me. Does it? I was not sure dark blue would suit me. Kane said with a small smile that looked more genuine than wider smiles. Her dark hair fell gracefully from her head, they reflected the silver light of the moon. They had a curly nature, unique in their own right and luscious. She wore a dark blue yukata that perfectly accentuated her curves, revealing her flawless shape. Yet she did not look slutty, she looked divine, like no man was deserving of her. The scent of flowers would hit my nose whenever the breeze came. It was not any perfume, it was just her natural scent. She was so pristine and her beauty almost seemed fantastical. As a person who perceived much of the world with sight alone, I could only stare at her like a fool. She had the beauty of 1,000 sunsets. She twirled around to give me a good look, she basked under my eyes. She was a flower and my gaze was water, she grew more confident and beautiful the longer she got my attention. I was right, you look stunning, I said again. In the 2 months that have passed, Kane continued to pursue me. I knew what she doing, and I knew what she wanted, but I didn't stop her. I allowed her to work her magic on me and now I was enchanted. I continued playing the dense protagonist because I didn't want to lose that feeling. The feeling of being loved and needed. And now, we were on a date. Well, none of us had acknowledged that it was a date or courtship, but we were going to a festival together. There was no other way to describe what was happening between us. You look handsome too, she said, returning my compliment, and I looked at the reflection in her eyes and saw what she was seeing. A man with purple hair that covered his ears. He looked more mature than his age due to rigorous training and the hardship he had been through. A handsome face framed 2 remarkable purple eyes that looked godly. He stood at the height of 6 feet and he wore a purple yukata with flower patterns. That was me. Only me. That was the only thing her eyes saw, they did not reflect anything else. Let's go, we want to reach the festival before it gets too crowded. It was early August and we were celebrating the summer festivals. We gave the excuse that we were on a joint mission to guard the people at the festival, so we had nothing to distract us at the moment. It was just me and her. Kane grabbed my hand with her soft hands. It was strange for a swordman to have such soft hands, but I didn't question it. I let her drag me to where she wanted. I let her do as she pleased, like I had been letting her do these past 2 months. We went to the town, which was decorated with many lights and lanterns. The place was full of life as the residents and many others from neighboring villages had come to celebrate the summer festivals. Some came to set up food stalls and games while others just came to enjoy the festivals. Families laughed and played games while couples walked around hand in hand. We were amongst the couples. We enjoyed the evening as much as we could. The festival was already beautiful and memorable, but what made it even more precious was that we had each other to share the moment. I was able to fulfill my duty as a man and bought anything Kane could ever want. I bought her apple candies and we tried many of the foods that were on the food stall. We also played the games there. How are you so good at this? Kane asked me with a giggle when she saw me scooping out 4 goldfish in a row with the paper spoon. It was the result of water breathing and perfect movement. But I said, it's because you are watching me and I have to impress you, she laughed. It made me happy that I could make her laugh. Seeing her laugh made me feel better than if I were the one laughing. That makes no sense, she said to herself. I could read everything that came out of her lips and even the words that only reached her throat. Because since the beginning, I had never truly looked away from her. My eyes were addicted to her. You have no idea what a man can do to impress a beautiful woman, I said, and I'm with the most beautiful woman, she smiled with red on her cheeks. Did you think that was corny? Well, I'd probably think that too, but here's a secret, there was nothing corny in love. Whatever you said, even if it was the most recycled flirting sentence on the internet, would sound like the most romantic thing ever. Because a woman in love makes everything perfect. Even if you said the corniest shit ever, her mind would perceive that on the same level as Shakespeare's masterpiece. People often misunderstood and called love blind, but it was not. Instead, it just made everything seem perfect. It fixed all flaws. It did not matter to her the words I said. It was me who said it, and she loved me. And that just made her love every word I said. Do you want to try it? I asked, and she said yes. She took a new paper spoon and tried to catch, but she failed miserably. She tried many more times, but she failed each time. In the end, I had to hold her hand and guide her so that she could catch some for herself as well. I didn't know if she was pretending to be bad for this specific situation, but I didn't think about it. I let her guide me in every situation. We caught 14 fish, leaving the stall owner depressed. She said they would be perfect to live in the pond of the flower mansion. As we left, I tossed some money to the owner to compensate for his loss. He seemed to appreciate that. We moved from stall to stall, the night was all ours and we spent it together. Do you want to buy the masks? She asked. And hide your pretty face? No, I replied. At last, when midnight came, we went to the top of a hill. The main event of the summer festival was always the fireworks, and we decided to pick a quiet and peaceful place to enjoy it. We were in high elevation and the colorful town could be seen below. When midnight struck, the first and most powerful firework took to the sky and exploded in a mesmerizing burst of color. Then the rest of the fireworks followed. On that night, even the moon and the stars did not have the spotlight, as the bright fireworks overshadowed them with their bright explosion and beauty. But still, it was the woman sitting next to me that made my heart skip a beat. Kane put her hand on top of mine and we enjoyed the moment until the end. When the last firework died in the sky, Kane turned towards me. Her face was tense and her palm felt a little sweaty on mine. The time has come. I knew she would not invite me to the festival just to go on a date. The plan in her mind was always to confess to me by the end of the festival. Sadly, it would also be the end for us. Because when she directly confessed to me, I would no longer be able to play the dense protagonist. I would have to confront her feelings and give my answer. My rejection. I told you right, I was a scumbag. I acted dumb for as long as I could because I wanted to enjoy her love longer without having to complicate things. I was taking advantage of her. I was giving her false hope. It would have been better to just reject her feelings from the start. But I let her try her best only to reject her in the end. Seiji. She began and my eyes released a glow due to nervousness. I slowed down my perception as much as I could to delay the inevitable. Because I really like her too. I have known her for 3 years now and she is one of the most important people in my life. But her love came too late. Maybe if she loved me before I met Mitsuri, I would gladly fall for her. I would love her with all my heart. That was not possible now. It was all too late for that. The idea of having a harem constantly plagued my mind during these 2 months, but I threw away the idea. These girls were special, they deserved to be loved wholeheartedly by someone. They deserve a man who would love them with all his heart. A man who would only love them. They didn't deserve to be one of two. They did not deserve half a heart, half the love. Neither Mitsuri nor Kane. Seiji, she hesitated for a long time. In the end, she just gave up, she stopped. A tear fell down her eyes and she smiled. I just stared at beauty in pain, a sunset hidden by clouds. I think it's time to leave now, she said instead. She knew it. She felt it. The rejection that she was going to get. Maybe it was my eyes or something about my body which was trembling in nervousness. But she knew I was going to reject her, so she didn't confess. She stood up first and offered her hand. I stared at her in wonder before I reached for her hand. She pulled me up, but she put too much strength. I stumbled forward and her face was buried on my chest. She closed her eyes and took in my scent. It was then that a single firework exploded in the sky again. It was the brightest firework of the night. I turned my head to look and that was when she said it. I love you. She didn't mean for me to see it. But I did. Because like I said, my eyes had never left her. I saw what she said in the furthest corner of my vision. Why? The question rang in my mind. She hugged my arm and buried it between her boobs. It was an act she realized I liked very much during the past 2 months. Yet I couldn't even enjoy the sensation. She leaned her head on my shoulder and acted like nothing had ever happened. She returned right back to a girl trying to win a man's heart. Why Kane? Why did you allow me to play dumb again? Because I am not going to admit I saw that. Why are you so stubborn? You know now that I would reject you in the end. Why do you keep loving me? It's starting to hurt me too. Why are you making this difficult for both of us? A scumbag. Kane was a scumbag too, just like me. She knew she was hurting her sister, she knew that I was in an engagement. She knew that she was making it difficult for me too. But she wanted to keep on loving me, just like I wanted her to keep on being loved. I guess we were both scumbags.